film you are about to see was produced for the Royal Canadian Air Force as a training aid for motor vehicle drivers of all three of the armed services. The principles of safe driving demonstrated developed over a number of years and have resulted in a marked decrease in military driving accidents. One RCAF command reduced its accident rate by more than 27% in 1959, and much of the credit for this achievement has been attributed to these concepts of driving. There's no intention, however, to infer that these are the only principles of safe driving. For instance, all cars are not equipped with identical turning lights, rear view mirrors, and transmission controls. And we fully realize that techniques of car control may vary, depending upon the traffic conditions and the design of the automobile. But numerous civilian agencies interested in safe driving have expressed their enthusiasm for the educational value of this motion picture. We in the Armed Forces invite you to join us in not only seeing the film, but in making our roads a safer place on which to drive.
All right, stand by. Come on, stand by. Come on, stand by. Come on, back. Move back.
I've spent some time investigating the reasons for the fantastic number of automobile accidents we experience every year. And the more I go into them, the more I realize what highway accidents mean in terms of human misery. After heart disease and cancer, the biggest killer is the automobile. What is even more tragic is that the automobile, without doubt, is the #1 killer in the younger age group, say up to the age of 25. The heavy increase in car insurance premiums within this age group make this painfully clear. But unlike disease, 90% of the accidents need never happen. Mechanical failure is rare. 9 out of 10 deaths are caused by sheer carelessness. Traffic was heavy. He lost his temper. Too fast on a slippery road. A game of cards, too many drinks, then he gambled on his life. He misjudged the curve. He thought he had room to pass. And so it goes on every day of the week. More people killed, more crippled for life. And it's not just the hot rods or the drunks. It's people like you and me and our children. You would think with all the publicity in the press and on radio and television, we'd pay a bit more attention to our driving. But it seems we don't care. Or we believe that getting one car length ahead is worth risking human lives. Let's consider for a moment. Is there any way in which we can protect ourselves from this unnecessary slaughter? One of the big factors is that drivers cannot keep effective control over their cars. Most of us think we're pretty competent behind a wheel. But there's a lot more to controlling a vehicle than just aiming it down the highway.
Turn! Up! Right! Turn! Big turn!
One place where drivers are really taught control is a driving school run by the Department of National Defense. Sergeant Smith is one of the instructors.
I always teach my students to make themselves comfortable and make sure they can see to the rear. Ensure that the gear is in neutral, parking brake fully engaged, and the window open for ventilation. Brakes should be tested before you need to use them. Many drivers hold the steering wheel carelessly. You need both hands and in the right position. Imagine the wheel as a clock, the hands at the 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock position. To turn, one hand pulls down, the other pushes up. The arms are always in position to make corrections quickly and effectively.
The main essentials in car control are concentration, road observation, and deliberation. In order that each situation may be observed and properly executed, sufficient time must be allowed. This is how the sequence of events in the National Defense System of car control is achieved. Here then is the left-hand turn in a 30-mile-per-hour area where traffic flow is normal on a 4-lane highway. The same sequence being used for a right-hand turn, the only difference being in the positioning of the car and the use of directional signals and hand indication. We're driving in the normal position, 4 feet from the curb. To get into the inside lane, look in the mirror for oncoming traffic. Make a left turn signal in good time to warn traffic of your intention. And when all is clear, take up position immediately right of the road center line. Now, gauge the distance to the intersection, recheck the mirror, give a slow down signal and brake to the speed to make the turn. No further braking should be required unless forced to a stop. When the correct speed is obtained, select the correct gear for control of the car at this speed. Now, check the mirror and give the left-hand turn signal. It may be that traffic conditions at the intersection may require you to blow your horn or stop completely. When the traffic permits, take the turn under gradual acceleration, and when only through the turn should firm acceleration be made. Had the intersection been a mandatory stop, we would not have changed to a lower gear or given a left turn signal. In other words, after giving the slow down signal, the brakes would be applied and the car brought to a stop in the correct lane. Immediately after coming to a stop, the parking brake is applied to prevent moving forwards or backwards into traffic, and the gear placed in neutral. When it's safe to move off, the left turn signal is made, first gear selected, and the parking brake released. Seems obvious, but how often do we do it? Here's Sergeant Smith doing a left-hand turn.
A good driver rates every intersection and obstacle as a potential hazard. To negotiate these hazards safely, we teach this system or drill. Now to do a left turn. First, check the traffic behind, then signal and change lanes. Recheck the mirror in case any fast traffic has come up behind. Signal, brake, and slow right down for the intersection. Shift down to the correct gear. Left-hand signal. Check the traffic situation to the right and left. Wait for a suitable opportunity, then act. This system makes sure the car is always in the correct position, traveling at the right speed, and with the correct gear engaged at all times. The gear change does not apply, of course, to cars with automatic transmission. That old farm tractor at the intersection is obviously a potential hazard. First, check the traffic behind. Signal and slow down. Make sure you don't get too close. Position the car so that you can watch the traffic conditions ahead and change into second gear so that you will be ready to pass safely when the opportunity permits. Recheck the traffic behind to make sure no one else is going to pass at the same time. Then signal your intention and pass as quickly as possible. The control of a car round bends depends on the correct use of the brakes and accelerator. All braking should be done before entering the turn. The wrong way is to go into a bend without slowing down. After you're in it, you realize you're going too fast and brake. This makes the car roll, and you lose control of the wheel. The right way is to slow down before getting into the curve. Then use the accelerator to maintain or gradually increase the speed depending on the turn and traffic conditions. This driver is entering a slippery turn too quickly. He panics and jams on the brakes. Imagine what would have happened on a busy highway. But if the foot brake is pumped, the wheels will grip the slippery surface. Should the car slide, turn the wheel in the direction of the slide until it straightens out. Let's have a look at it in slow motion. The car starts to slip to the left, so turn the wheel to the left. As the car starts to straighten out, move the wheel back to its original position. Always steer into the direction of the skid. If the skid is to the right, turn the wheel right. If the skid is to the left, turn the wheel left.
Remember then, when it's wet or icy, keep your speed down. Most of us are reasonably careful in bad weather. But do we always take the same precautions when driving at night? John Harrison trucks for a company with an enviable safety record.
Most of my driving for the firm is done at night. And this is when you get road problems very different to daytime driving. However, it has some advantages. For instance, you can flick the high beams on and off. And that's a good way of warning the driver ahead that you're going to pass. Now, most drivers dip their lights when meeting oncoming traffic, but there's always some guy who never seems to learn. When his lights dazzle me, I always look at the right shoulder, use it as a guide to keep the truck well over onto the right side. Pedestrians can see the truck, but if they're wise, they keep well off the road too, because sometimes it's not so easy for me to see them. Driving long distances can get boring at the best of times, but at night it's especially easy to get a bit drowsy. Frequent stops, a little exercise to waken me up, the odd cup of coffee, they all go a long way to help me stay alert.
Unfortunately, sheer skill by itself is not enough. Most of us are relatively competent to handle a car, although we're not usually as good as we think we are. Where we often slip up is not in the mechanics of driving, but in our attitude when we get behind a wheel. Too many of us try and act like Superman. If we're tired out or have one too many, we might think twice about joining a poker game. But in the same condition, you sink wearily into the foam cushions of your automobile and aim a ton or more of steel down a busy highway. Well, the chances are you won't do any better on the road than if you join the game. At least, when you play cards, all you can lose is your money. It's not a good thing to drink, then drive. But after a hard day's work, there are many who feel they must relax over a glass of beer. How much alcohol does it take to impair your driving? Well, it varies from one person to another. But for anybody, it takes very little to slow up the reflexes. How would you like to meet Joe Watson on the highway? We never seem to learn, do we? If more people could only see the inside of the emergency wards in our hospitals, see the waste, the suffering that the doctors have to contend with.
The sick and severely injured are, of course, a normal part of my daily routine. But I sometimes wonder if driving a car is worth the price we have to pay. Our youngest patient has just had his 5th birthday. A little devil, really, but the nurses think a lot of him. The usual story. Somebody was in a hurry to get somewhere. We'll soon have him as good as new, although he'll always have a slight limp. Not so fortunate is a girl in one of the wards downstairs. Seems she was out for a drive with her boyfriend when he decided to show her how smart he was at cutting in and out of the traffic. Her spinal cord was severed when they hit the truck. She's completely unable to make any movement at all. She can't raise her hand. She can't even talk. Unfortunately, there's nothing more we can do for her. Really quite something for a young girl to look forward to. Her boyfriend was rather more fortunate. He died almost instantaneously when the steering column perforated his left lung. It takes so very little to cause a tragedy.
The day starts at the corner store. Fred's truck is loaded and ready for the first delivery. A few kids are around, a garbage can. Nothing to worry about. A supermarket parking lot, looking for a space. Not bad. A second's inattention. Apart from our own mistakes, what about the shortcomings of our fellow drivers? A noted psychiatrist reports that out of 10,000 problem drivers referred to his department, at least 1,000 did not have the mental capabilities to operate a vehicle safely. And when you add to these all the people who behave like madmen, it's not surprising we have so many accidents. But you can learn to defend yourself. If you anticipate trouble, you'll have time to avoid it. To do this, you've got to get the big picture of the traffic conditions. Look right down the highway and see what you're driving into. And not just straight ahead either, like a horse with blinkers, but to the sides as well. Keep your eyes moving, always looking for the unexpected. By doing so, you can anticipate any trouble that is building up in front of you. By the same token, this big picture must also include the rear. You need the overall idea of the traffic pattern, the complete picture of what's going on around you to be safe. Very often, it's the little signs that count. Children are unpredictable. When there are children about, keep your speed down. Make up for their inexperience by taking more care yourself. Busy city streets with pedestrian traffic and parked cars offer potential hazards. Stay alert. In the absence of a hand signal, a wheel may easily tell you all you need to know. Watch out for those little signs. Anticipate trouble, and you're more liable to keep clear of it. An obvious way to defend yourself on the highway is to allow a good safety margin for stopping. When following in traffic, the safe distance between your car and the one in front is 1 foot for each mile per hour for speeds up to 30 miles per hour, and 1 yard for each mile per hour for speeds over 30 miles per hour. For instance, at 50 miles per hour, the interval should be 50 yards. Of course, if the roads are wet or icy, you must at least double this distance to be safe. Mr. Smith on his way home. Mr. Pig behind. Doesn't like following the leader.
Somebody always wants to pass. Jerk. Drives like an old woman. All right, you son of a... I'll teach you. Let him kill himself. Why get worked up?
He made it. Pig likes a little fun on the road at someone else's expense. Some people are chronically selfish. That's why constant law enforcement is necessary. Whatever happens, keep your temper. Make a point of deliberately staying out of trouble. It's good life insurance. And after all, it's your life. Well, you may think this is just more preaching. But if we don't learn to drive safely, there'll be more cases of children without parents, wives without husbands, and parents without children. Remember the 3 basic rules for safety. Don't just guide your car, make sure you control it. Stay alert so that you can defend yourself from accidents. Make driving what it should be, a full-time business. And lastly, restrain emotions. Control yourself. There's no place on the highway for temper or temperament. If we are to consider ourselves good drivers, these 3 basic rules must be practiced. How do you drive? Think it over. Don't wind up being just another statistic. Take care and get home safely.